You're listening to the Hawke Media Podcast, a podcast dedicated to helping entrepreneurs and executives crush the digital marketing game. Whether you're looking for techniques and strategies or tools and resources, you've come to the right place. Let's get into the show.
Thank you for listening to HawkeTalk. We're here with Lou Lombardi. How are you?
Hey, how are you?
Good to have you, man. So before becoming one of the most recognizable actors out there that's been in everything, I love to start with, I assume that like 4 years old, 5 years old, where you grew up, like were you in the drama club? Like, was that part of your upbringing? Like, would love to hear, how did you get there?
if you talk about the streets of the Bronx being the drama club, then I was in it my whole life.
So there was a lot of drama.
Yeah, there's a lot of drama, a lot of everything. But growing up where I lived, no one really understands like anything but the streets.
Yeah.
So as a kid, I have headshots from when I was 12 years old.
Yeah.
And when people now look at them, they're like, because they go, oh, wow, you just got on Sopranos, you're famous now. It's like, No, I've been doing this for 40 years. I'm 52.
Yeah.
I have headshots for 40 years ago.
You were acting as a kid.
12 years old, yeah. But what I did was, growing up, I never went to school.
Uh-huh.
So none of our friends really went to school. So what I did was, I started doing, I would send my stuff out to NYU Films. I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Yep.
And I never went to acting school. I never went to film school. I never went to any school. I went to like 5th or 6th grade,
Yeah.
But I knew I always wanted to do since I was a kid.
To take a step back, where were your parents from? How did you end up in the Bronx?
Well, my whole family's from Harlem, and they all migrated to the Bronx. So, when I was a young kid, my father died. So it was just my mother bringing us up.
And how old?
2 or 3.
Oh, got it.
Yeah. So when in the Bronx, I stood with these 4 or 5 kids who I lived in the same building with, and none of them had fathers. That's what my TV series is about. The one I'm doing with MGM, called Small Time. It's about my life growing up in the Bronx and these kids with no fathers who bound together to become their own little family. And each one of us had, I don't say connections, but our families were involved in a kind of life. So everyone knew us. We were kind of strong group of guys together, but we were our own little team. We looked out for each other since we didn't have fathers. We would be out all night. We'd be playing sports. None of us went to school, so we just hung out. And that's how, like, I always wanted to be an actor from 10 years old, and they would make fun of me. You want to be an actor? Ha, ha, yeah, Hollywood, asshole. I'd be like, what? Don't make sense, right?
Yeah.
What happened was those people who laughed at me all got 25 years in prison. And they're all filtering out now as I've been a 25, 27-year run in Hollywood.
Yeah. So for what? Like, what kind of stuff that took these guys away?
Well, let's go backwards first. Let's go back to the point A. All right, so how I got involved was I never went to school, never did anything. As a kid, I would go down to Manhattan. I would audition for NYU Films. And what happened was I got in so many of them. Yeah. That was my, and I would tell people, you really can't learn an acting class. You got to be in the real world of it. It's like the business world. You're in the trenches, you learn faster, anything, correct? So what I would do is I would audition for NYU Films and student films and all these films, and I would get so many. So I started being passed around by all the filmmakers at NYU. Like, what is, you do a film, he does a film, she does a film. Before you know it, everyone's doing a film. And I had so much fun doing it. That's how I learned hands-on on real sets at 11, 12, 13, 15, 17 years old. Yeah. And what happened was, from sending my stuff out to Backstage, it used to be a magazine. I think it's online now, if I'm correct. But we just send our headshots out. That's how I got Amongst Friends. Amongst Friends was my first film, but I had gotten it 2 years before anything. An independent nothing film in New York. Mira Savino was the casting person.
Yeah.
She cast me. She was no one. Her dad put in 10 grand. She was associate producer of this Amongst Friends movie. Well, anyway, we went in, we auditioned for that film after my slew of NYU films. Got this film, and 2 years later, the film went to Sundance Film Festival, 1993.
Wow.
So no one, and that year with us, that's when Sundance was a film festival, not a film market, which it became. Right. We went there the year I was there. The group of filmmakers that came out with us, that year alone, Robert Rodriguez, Jennifer Lynch, Bryan Singer, Rob Weiss. There was 7 major film, Chris McQuarrie, who writes all those movies, for Tom Cruise and every biggest writer. I won an Academy Award for Usual Suspects. So my point is we did this film in New York.
Yep.
All my buddies got arrested in 1991 too. 93, the director goes, "Hey, we're going to Sundance with our movie." I'm like, "What Sundance?" No one knew. I got my car. There was no one around. Everyone went to jail. We ended up taking a drive across country. Went from the Bronx, whatever. I had like $5,000 in a car that I bought, right? And a Maxima. So I drove it across country. Got to LA, got Mira Savino, and we all drove to Sundance together from LA. Yep. And then boom, that's how she got started. Robert Rodriguez saw her. Robert Redford saw her in Amongst Friends, put her in Quiz Show from a Sundance. Yeah. And boom, that was her career. It was almost by accident too, because they couldn't find a girl when she was casting. They couldn't find a girl. So they were like, at the last minute, goes, "Why don't you do it? You know the lines you're casting." She got in the movie that way, and that's what made her famous. Wow. By accident, an Oscar winning. Not everything is not by accident; it's by chance. Yeah. And I believe as long as you keep knocking on the door, a door will open. Yep. Whether it's today or whether it's 20 years. And the show that I'm pitching, Small Time, the one we're doing now with MGM. You know how long I've been pitching that, Erik? Yeah. I'll save you 22 years. And we just signed a deal yesterday. My people are like, "You're insane. You're so tenacious. You don't stop." Right, because once you stop, there's no opportunity. Yeah. No matter how many, and failure is not succeeding. It's not trying. Yep. And I tell all you, even in acting, "Oh, it's so hard." What's easy? Tell me, because I want to go do it. And I'll be on my couch. And I'll be in Palm Springs, and I'll be like you behind the throne behind you.
Yeah, exactly. No, my favorite thing about that is everybody talks about like hard work gets you there. It's like hard work's kind of just the level set. Like if you want to be successful, you got to work hard. Like that's where it starts. It doesn't. Nobody's successful because they worked hard. That doesn't what drives success. But working hard is a prerequisite to being successful.
Right.
In anything. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Working hard, luck. Working hard, luck. And being good at what you do. And it's not about being great. Passion supersedes knowledge sometimes. Yep. Because if you can talk to people and they'll follow and they'll believe what your passion is, they will come. If you're trying to explain to people who don't really grasp a concept with knowledge, sometimes you flutter them. They're like, let me think about it kind of mentality. But if I sit in a room and go, boom, we're going to do it, and you bring passion instead of book smarts, it works sometimes 100 times as good as book knowledge.
People are emotional creatures, man. They justify logic with justify emotions with logic, but they definitely I don't care how educated you are, people are run by emotions. And if you can transfer that enthusiasm, which is what they say, a sale is a transfer of enthusiasm from one person to another. If you're good at selling, at transferring that enthusiasm, their emotions are going to kick in. People, and it's every that way. Definitely. So let's take a step back. All your friends went to jail.
My grandfather did 30 straight years in prison.
For what?
What?
For what?
Well, it was part of like the French Connection. That's where the movie was made about all his buddies. Uh-huh. That's what my show hits on as well. Or like us being kids and going through this. I've been visiting the federal prison system since I'm 5. Yeah. And I have pictures of it. And then they show 5 until 45. And that's how long I've been in the system. Wow. Not directly, but indirectly. That make sense?
Yeah.
Visiting on my grandfather. So my grandfather did 30 straight years. My uncles did 10. My cousins did 5. All my friends did 25 to 30. So when I wanted to be an actor, they told me I was crazy. So get ready for this, Erik. I used to get phone calls from my grandfather I was like a legend in the federal prison system. And every time they would be watching Sopranos, I was the cop. Oh, yeah. They'd be like, at 24, I was the cop. Yeah. They'd be like, you play the cop and everything. And as my grandfather would get on the phone and bust my balls, they would pass me around to all my buddies in the prison watching the TV, watching Sopranos. Yeah. So they'd be like, you're the cop. And you hear all the prisoners laughing and cheering me on. And I'd be like, that's pretty cool. Yeah. God forbid I ever go to federal prison. I'll be all right.
Yeah. No, and it's funny, like it shows like in terms of upbringing, like you were brought up like everybody was going to jail and you're the weird one for wanting to go do something in acting.
Yeah. Oh, I took so much shit. Yo, you asshole, you Hollywood jerk off. I was like, what? Meanwhile, now, dude, they all call me and go, "Oh, we're so proud of you. We watched you on this. We didn't know you were in that." I'm like, "Yeah, that asshole made it."
Yeah.
Again, the biggest part of life, whether you're young or old, don't listen to no one. Don't listen to no one's negativity. I don't care if it's your parents. If you have passion and a love, do it.
Yep.
And I did, with no education, with no money, I didn't know one person in Hollywood. I just showed up with passion and enthusiasm. And it worked.
No, and it worked amazingly. Again, like you're one of those, like, everybody's seen your face. Everybody, you mentioned Lou Lombardi. A lot of people know the name, but the moment you show a picture, it's like, oh, got it. I know who this is.
Right. That's good.
You've been in everything. And so you had the movie that got into Sundance, got you out there. Did you stay in LA after that, or what happened next?
Well, what happened was, as soon as I went to Sundance, our movie screened and it was a hit. It was a massive, massive hit. Okay.
Yeah.
I got an agent right there in Sundance. This is when it was more real. Like, now it's like, it's impossible to do half the stuff, but you still got to work a million times harder. But then it was a little different, the business, Sundance especially. Agents were going there for talent, writers, directors, actors. Now it's about acquisitions of film.
Yeah.
Oh, this little movie was just made with Oliver Stone, Brad Pitt's in it. It's like, okay, it's not a little movie compared to when you're taking your mom's credit card and spending, $200,000 on a movie and you're broke from Iowa. That's a movie. That's hard. So anyway, it's traded. And so what I did was, after Sundance, it was a big hit. We did great. I drove back to LA.
Yeah.
And the writer, Rob Weiss, was the writer director of the movie. He's like, "Yo, bro, we had no car." Right? And he's like, "Hey, I need a ride to Santa Monica. I got to go see Oliver Stone." He wanted to talk to me about doing a movie. He's like, "Can you give me a ride?" I'm like, now, growing up, I wasn't. I like Scorsese. I like Coppola. I like film. Oliver Stone was my idol. I read his books. Every film that he does, I want to represent my body of work, how I want to direct and write. Realistic, crazy, hardcore is more of an Oliver Stone mindset and what I want to create. Okay, my first week back in Hollywood, Rob's like, "Drive me." I drive to Santa Monica. I meet Oliver Stone. No union card, nothing. I'm in his office in Santa Monica. And I'm like, "Hi." He's like, "Hey, man, want to come in the meeting with us, with Rob and him?" I'm in the office. He brings in Rob. He's like, "Come on in." I go in the meeting, and I'm sitting there now, my first week in Hollywood with my freaking idol. I'm like, this is almost surreal.
Yeah.
Who's laughing? Who's the asshole now?
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm sitting there, but I'm quiet. I'm just watching this guy. Like, I grew up going, this is what I want to do. And my first person is him. He goes, "Hey, man," talks to Rob, says, "I want to do a movie with you." About to leave the meeting, he goes, "Hey, man." He starts fucking with me. He goes, "Who are you?" I go, "I'm in amongst friends." He goes, "Ah." He goes, "I'm fucking with you." He goes, "I love your look. I'm going to put you in my next movie." I was like, a week in Hollywood. I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah." I go, "What is it?" "Natural Born Killers."
Yeah.
And a couple of weeks go by. I don't hear from him. I'm like, "This full of shit Hollywood fucker." I get a call. He goes, "Come to my office in Santa Monica again." I show up in the meeting. It's Robert Downey, Woody Harrelson, Tommy Lee Jones, Tom Sizemore, Juliette Lewis, and me. And I'm going, "Oh my God." They're like, "All right, we're going to have actors come in. They're going to pick somebody to play your partner in the movie, and you're going to have say." I'm like, this was my first couple of weeks in Hollywood. I had no union card. And before you know it, I was
happened that way.
But if it wasn't just like a director.
Yeah.
It was like the person you idolized is actually going to give you your break.
Yep. Because you'd offered a guy a ride that didn't have a car that you knew through this other movie. Like, that's what I love about the chain. And you mentioned it, like, hard work's important. A lot of luck goes into it. And don't get me wrong, you're going to create your luck. Like, if it wasn't that, you'd keep working, and a year later, something lucky would happen. Like, you keep at it, the luck comes at some point, but it hit right away for you.
And it's like, I'm sitting there, it's kind of amazing. That's like, I don't know who you ever look up to in business, but it's like, you coming out here, just walking around, and this guy runs into you and says, "Hey, I want to use you." And you're like, "What?"
Yeah.
It was surreal at the moment. So after I did that movie, I was in Chicago. I was in Chicago with them for 3 months. Yeah. Hung out with Robert Downey every night. I made buddies with them. They were great to me. I didn't even have a union card. When a month he paid, I got my union card for Oliver Stone.
Yeah.
My SAG card. Yep. And then he flew me to New York for the premiere of Amongst Friends, because it was that summer. So it all worked out, and he ended up liking me. And after I got back, everyone was like, "Oh my God, Oliver Stone hired you?"
Yeah.
They were like, then it was immediately Tim Burton, John Landis, Ivan Reitman. I did back to back film.
Yeah.
You know, working with great directors. But what more about bigger than becoming famous in my eyes or an actor? I just took it as free knowledge. Look at this. I'm going to learn hands-on now, like I did NYU as an actor. And I also learned how to make movies. But now I'm in the real world with massive people that are insane. And I'm learning from how to make movies from these people now.
Yeah.
So I would tell my buddies, it's more like, to me, it's more schooling without going to school, like the way I love to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I excel and stuff like that. So I don't know. It just turned out I worked with so many great directors. I did Father's Day. Oh man, I can't even tell you. Beverly Hills Cop 3. Father's Day with Robin Williams and Billy Crystal and Julia Dreyfus. Me and Jared Harris did that. I don't know if you're familiar with Jared Harris, Richard Harris's son. He was in Chernobyl and all this stuff. Yeah, we started out like this 95, 96, you know. And then I did Usual Suspects. I did so many movies. But that was the launch of the career, being from a street kid, learning on my own. And, you know, even though I didn't go to school, I learned how to read and write on my own. I've written 30 projects. And people are like, who I did, because all I do is I learn. I used to sit down for 24 hours and just type, even if it was 10 pages.
When I first met you, you had Jacked. I'll never forget that.
Boom. People are still calling me to try to do that in New York.
It's a fucking great script. That was like when I first moved to LA, I had no idea what I was doing. We got introduced by Troy.
Edwards.
Oi.
Yeah. So that's kind of funny. You read that. That's even more crazy, dude.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, no, that was fun. And no, that's great. So where would you say, like, obviously that was a huge launch pad to your career, but you obviously ended up on many seasons of 24. Like, was that a big turning point, or what was kind of the next jumping off point with your career?
Well, I'll tell you, I did a movie called Suicide Kings. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Yep.
Suicide Kings was a movie I did, and it was all by accident. Again, another total accident. I wasn't supposed to be in it. I knew the writer producer. He's like, Louis, would you do it? He goes, I was supposed to be a big role. The director didn't want me in that role. Again, when you think something punches you in the face, it's actually making you better. The director didn't want me in the movie. He hired everybody else. Long story short, my buddy's the writer producer, goes, just do one day on the movie with Dennis Leary. You're in the car, you have no lines, just say whatever. Yeah, boss, is the line. It's like, okay, yeah, it's my friend. Yeah. You know, you never turn down an opportunity, you know, whether it's bitter, mad, whatever. The director didn't want me in it, whatever. Long story short, I'm in the movie. One day we shoot 12 hours driving in the car all night. Dennis Leary has his 5-page monologues. He goes, I'm not saying any of this. He tells the director. He goes, I'm just going to improvise with this guy. The guy's like, no, I wrote all this stuff. He goes, I'm not saying any of it. I didn't even know Dennis Leary. In the trailer, he crumples the papers, throws them in the bucket, says, let's go outside. We're in the car, 12 hours downtown LA shooting. The director's like, yeah, none of this is going to be used. You know, we're not going to use it. He's like, okay, whatever. 6 months later, I'm in 10 scenes. They took that one night and put me throughout the movie because it was so great. All improvised. Me and Leary just shooting shit back, and they kept everything in. They actually wrote a sequel of that movie for me and Leary based on that one night. Wow. So what happened was Christopher Walken was in the movie.
Yep.
His wife was Georgianne Walken. She cast Sopranos. Entourage, they did. Sheila Jaffe Walken. She loved me in Suicide Kings and tried to get me in the first season of Sopranos. She was like, yeah, you know, let's get you in. I went and I read. I ended up getting a show in Hawaii with Malcolm McDowell.
Oh, nice. I know him from childhood. Grew up with his kids.
Malcolm? Yeah. Charlie was with us in Hawaii. Yeah, hold on, can I just get a glass of water a second? Hold on. So anyway, long story short, right? Me and Malcolm got this show, and we're shooting in Hawaii now. My first TV show. We're moving to Hawaii, out to shoot a fucking massive show. Yeah. Malcolm, it was the remake of Fantasy Island. Got it. So me and Malcolm, he played Mr. Rourke, I played Tattoo. Yeah. So So anyway, we were in Hawaii. Charlie came out and hung out. Charlie was great.
Yeah,
I
he's a
took them to
great
see all
guy.
the crazy. I took them to see. You ever talk to him?
We're Facebook friends, but I haven't seen him in a while. We went to a tiny hippie school in Ojai together.
Oh, really? Oh, really? That's where they live.
Yeah, exactly.
That's where Malcolm lives. Yeah.
Yep.
So wait. So it was so funny because. So Charlie would come with the other writers. I would take them to do all the crazy shit. Malcolm would be like, "Why are you taking my Sunday? He's 15." So I would take them to see all the under shit in Hawaii. I'd just be cruising. Hey, you want to come with me? Yeah. So I ended up loving those kids, right? So
Yep.
I go way off on this. So anyway, we'll go back to. Well, anyway, I was going to tell you a story with Charlie.
Sopranos.
To Sopranos. So Georgiana tried to get me on Sopranos. I got Fantasy Island. I auditioned for the first year of Sopranos, didn't get it. We moved to Hawaii. Shows a $50 million show bombs for ABC. Yeah. Bombs. And I'm like, oh my God, again, the world's over. Yeah. Oh yeah, look at the world's over. I got canceled. I was 30 years old, making a ton of money living in Hawaii. Got canceled. It was a disaster. I go to New York. It was Christmas time. I go, oh, fuck. All right, got canceled. I said, I flew from Hawaii to New York to see my mom for Christmas, right? Yeah. I'm there one day. Georgianne Walken finds out that I'm in New York, says, can he come in today? That day. Wow. I get there. The next day, I go to read for them. Now, I knew Gandolfini from 95, way before Sopranos. We used to hang out in LA all the time. Yeah. All of us would hang out in all the bars and restaurants. So when I went to read, he was there. He's like, I'm reading with you. I was like, what? David Chase, everyone's in the room. Takes the sides, reads one scene. There's like 8 scenes. He's like, that's it, you're done. I'm like, oh man, I just got off a failing show. But Georgianne was a fan who remembered me. Yeah. From that one day of working for $500.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I ended up getting in the whole movie.
Yep.
Now she's putting me on the biggest show in TV history, and I got in when the first season was massive. I got in on the second season when it was huge.
Yeah.
And I had a great role. And I ended up knowing Big Pussy for 35 years.
Yeah.
We were friends when I was a kid. So it was kind of like I'm playing in this show. It's the biggest show. But when I got canceled, I thought the world was over. And it turned out I ended up getting the biggest break of my life. Of course, Sopranos, when I did that, and it was because of the suicide case. And again, $500 started my whole TV career. I did that one day. She loved it. I got Sopranos. After Sopranos was over, I did 2 more pilots for like Judd Apatow. I did one for someone else, right? About 2 years later, I get a call from Joe Cernow, the creator of 24. And he's like, can you come in? I go, sure. He goes, now, I done played a bad guy, I don't know, whatever. He goes, hey, man, I'm in the room, I'm reading. He goes, hey, man, I just saw Sopranos. He goes, and I love you, and I want to put you on our show. As the total opposite person that I really was. Is quiet, nerdy, getting yelled at by Clyde. You've seen 24. And it's that opposite of my personality. So he was like, I want to put you on my show. Probably 1 or 2 episodes. 1 or 2 episodes turned into 48. We won an Emmy for it, for best cast, best drama. And again, it started from $500 that one day I look at. If I was a bitter or said, I ain't doing it, to hell with it, who knows if these opportunities would have arose. Yeah. But I did it. I was like, I want to do it because I love what I do with my friend. I said, of course I'll help you. And I did it. And again, I got in the whole movie. I got Sopranos. Sopranos got me 24, all from that one day for $500.
And throughout 24, were you in other movies while filming on 24, or did you wait during that period to get
into I met Adam Sandler.
Yeah.
And Adam Sandler was the nicest person I've ever met in this entire business and outside of the business. So what he did was he called me in and he's like, hey, we're doing a movie with Rob Schneider. I want to put you in it. That was the audition. Yeah. He goes, I watch you on Sopranos. I love you on Sopranos. And I want to put you on. And they put me in The Animal. Yeah. And I play Rob Schneider's best friend. Yeah. And in between all my TV shows, I did 2 or 3 movies. My career has been so lucky with the quality of movies I've done. Yeah. I've worked with massively great people that I can learn from. Like I said, Ivan Reitman, John Landis, Tim Burton, Oliver Stone. I mean, I've worked with some amazing big directors. So I don't know. I just think, it all kind of spiraled from certain thing to certain thing, you know?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
You were on Entourage. I got to ask a quick question since he was on the podcast. How was it like? What was it like working with Doug Ellen? How was that?
Well, I know Doug for 30 years.
Oh, do you?
He was part of, I know him since 1993. From the first day we got him. He was Rob Weiss's buddy from Long Island. He was an amongst friends kind of guy. He was Rob Weiss's buddy. They were buddies. They were best friends. They grew up together. And we all used to hang out. That's what I'm saying. Like 93, we would all go to all the bars and all the clubs in LA together. That's how long I know Doug. And then Doug called me one day and said, hey, man, I want you to come be on the show, playing Turtle's cousin. Again, you'll be on in and out. So I did like 4 or 5 episodes of that. But the character was so memorable. People love it.
Yeah.
The shady dude, you know. Hey, I can get you a jersey. Hey, I can buy you a bar, you know. And Doug kept writing as much as he can. I did a few episodes, but that was when I was doing 24, I think. And they were strict on other TV shows.
Yeah.
But when I was down, I could do a movie. But they didn't really want you to be on other shows.
Yeah.
You know. So after 2 years of 24, then I just went back and I wrote, directed, and starred in my film, and I shot it all at the Bronx.
Yeah.
Called Doughboys.
Yep.
Mike stars in it. My first movie I wrote, directed, and starred was 1997, but before Fantasy Island. Peter Green was in it. Mike Starr, Jimmy Matteo, like a lot of great people were in that. I shot it all at the Roxbury nightclub. Then, 10 years later, I did Doughboys in the Bronx after 24.
Yeah.
And, and since then it's just been, doing all kinds of stuff, movies, TV series. And now I just worked on the one with MGM. We're about to hopefully get that sold and about out there to shoot that in New York. And it'll be about my life growing up in the Bronx, which is great, Yeah.
There's a lot more deeper in there. So, so, other than filming that, what's next? You've got your pasta sauce company coming out. Like, would love to know. Where did you go from being on 24 and Entourage? Like, what was the next steps? You've just continued to take acting gigs and started working on some other stuff, or what's
I love business stuff. I love other stuff. I'm passionate about food as much as I am about acting. It's 50-50. So I was approached to do a food line because people are like, oh my God, when you come to our houses, you talk about food. You're so passionate.
You told me on moving into a new place, you said you're going to come over and live with us and cook pizzas. You just mentioned that.
Yeah, you better get a big pizza oven. I want the slippers, the big fuzz slippers and the pajamas. Your wife's like, yo, he's up again at 4 a.m. making pizza.
Again, I don't think my wife would mind you being up at 4 a.m. making pizza.
Hey.
Fresh pizza is perfect.
But so what happened was my passion for food and film started when I was a kid. I grew up in a household with all women. I told you, we had no dads. So we grew up with all women. And that's what makes my TV show unique than other crime shows, is that it's 14-year-old kids with 4 women who brought them up.
Yeah.
The middle of the gangster stuff is basically just street kids. So I grew up with all the time with my grandmother, my mother, my aunt. I learned how to cook since I was a baby.
Yeah.
And I always do it. I sit home every night now with my daughter and cook. So what happened was people started seeing my passion. They were like, hey, man, we should do a food line. You think you'd be great? And I was like, great idea. And that's how it evolved. And I started doing the food shows and Taste of Italy downtown LA and having a booth and cooking for people and getting on stage doing cooking demos. And it turns out that I love this, if not more than my TV and film career. Yeah. Like, this is not like I want to make a quick buck. No, I want to feed people across America. The biggest thing for my company is to bring families back to the dinner table. When I was a kid, we would sit at the table with 10 of us, talking, friends, family, everybody from the streets. Our table was the meeting room, and we would sit there for hours. These days, it's sad to say, but parenting is, here's an iPhone, here's McDonald's, shut the fuck up, I worked all day.
Yeah.
My Lombardi's Foods goal is to bring families back. Let's sit with our kids. Let's talk. Let's ask them how school was, how they feeling. Maybe they won't be so pent up and so, in the frustrating point of where kids are today.
Yeah.
Parents don't pay attention. I'm with my daughter all the time. I hate the iPhones. Even when I was waiting for Zoom for you, I'm like emailing. Am I doing it right? I'm more of a people person where I want to interact with you face to face. I want to get on the phone.
Yeah.
I want to hear you. I want to see if you're really passionate as I am.
Yeah.
You could send exclamation marks and emails and texts, but are you really passionate?
Yeah.
And with the food line, I want to feed America. I want to have a couple of charities I want to attach, a youth program to feed kids who don't have stuff. I want to do a single mom charity. You know,
that's
there's
awesome.
a lot more. Yeah,
When's it
there's a
coming
lot
out? When do
more.
we get to try some?
Well, hopefully after we do our campaign, then we're gonna go right into production with the food line. With the packaging of the food, which I am so excited for. Yeah, I've already got distributors calling me, everyone going, we want to help. This is a great idea. We love your message. Your message is strong. It's at a time now when people need it. And I'm like, that's not a message that I made up. That's a message that I live by.
Yeah, which is the authenticity of it. Like when it's a real message that you actually stand behind. And you just said it, like it was off the cuff, but you're going to donate to, single mothers. And like, that's where you came from. Like you were, as you said, this comes from being raised by a single mother that taught you to cook and taught you the importance of family. And now look what it's inspired you to do now that you've gone through this career. Like that's awesome. And so
thank you.
I really appreciate the time. Got one big question for you. You've given a ton of nuggets here for people, but like, what would be the main thing you tell someone that, has dreams to pursue, like someone young that's just getting started, that doesn't even know maybe what that dream is? What's your biggest piece of advice there?
Never quit, never listen to anyone, and always be passionate of what you're doing. Yep. You walk into a room, you're a business guy. If I walk into your room and go, hey, Erik, I'm thinking about doing something. What are you going to say? Yeah. Get the fuck out of here. Where's your energy? But if I walk into your room and go, I'm going to feed America, this is great. And you're like, wow, that's a pretty realistic goal. Like that can, like, wow, I want to be with this guy on this mission.
As you said, like you with enthusiasm. No, I want to feed America too. Let's fucking do it.
We are going to. But that's my point. Is that's what I tell young actors, young business people, young people in general. Because a lot of kids today, Erik, don't have a path.
Yeah.
So they go to school for stuff that they don't really utilize. They linger around hoping that they will learn something. But no one goes boom. Very few people have that spark. But and a lot of people go, oh, my friend said it was a dumb idea. I go, don't listen to anyone. Yeah. If I would have listened to my buddies in the Bronx, I'd be doing 30 years instead of 30 movies. Yep. Right? Yep. Or 100 movies. Yep. So I tell every young person, never quit, be passionate, and get an idea and be strong with it. Yep. Veer for creative stuff, but not do what you're doing. Too many people get influenced negatively. Yep. And sad enough, it's mostly from people's parents and family members.
Well, because they come with their own, preconceived notions. Like that's why I say it openly. Like I'm lucky because my dad's an entrepreneur. So his advice to me was swing the bat. Same kind of advice. Right. It's like, keep going for it. You're going to hit something. Just keep going for it. That was the advice. So I'm lucky in that way. Most people hear the opposite from the parents. Like, I don't know. Maybe you should just have a fallback plan or be safe.
Yes.
For their kids. And
that's the key word is you eliminate the fallback plan.
Yeah.
People's parents well, you need a fallback. What do you mean? So I'm not going to emphasize my energy on my passion and my love, but you want a fallback plan? So you're saying, what you're saying with that is you're setting me up to fail. So you expect me to fail so I have something else.
Yeah.
What kind of faith do you have in me? Yeah. And that's when parents just go, okay, do some, and it is what it is. You support your kids and hopefully they go right, Yeah. So I don't know. I just believe that, I believe your dad's right. And I was telling you this earlier. Once you stop knocking on doors, no matter how many times that door shuts, you move to the next door. You smile. Yeah. I've been doing my TV series for 22 years, getting it sold. The food line's been a passion my whole life, getting it going, never stopping. I remember talking to you years ago about it, I know what's funny about you is I know you when you were younger in your college days, and I used to come hang out with you and your buddies in Santa Monica. You're like, hey,
we got that limo to downtown.
I'd be like, yeah. What?
That limo to downtown on New Year's.
Yeah, all right, pictures keep coming up, the memories on Facebook. And I'm like, oh my God. And I go, look how long I know him. Like I tell my girlfriend and my daughter, I'm like, I love it because you've always been a great guy. Or else I don't really associate with a lot of people. When you were a kid and you were in college and having your fun, whatever you call it, but as you got older than you are now, you've always been the same genuine person from a young kid to a successful man that you become. And I love it. I love watching you. I love reading your stuff. You inspire me. And I'm like, that's my friend. He was always great. Like even as a kid, like some kids grow up they could be kids, but then they grow up successful and they kind of have, whatever. I'm around. I'm in Hollywood. You are opposite. You're always this. Yes. And I respect you. And I can't wait to see your next chapter in your life, dude.
Thanks, man. You'll be there. We're gonna feed America.
Yeah, man.
The next chapter.
You'll be 300 pounds. I'll be living in your guest house. You'll be like Brando. Remember Brando when he walked around his estate with the bathrobe on?
Not a bad life, man. Not a bad life.
No, not a bad life, dude.
All right. Well, thanks again for being on HawkeTalk. Great to catch up, and we'll talk soon.
Yes, you got it, buddy. Thanks, bud. Bye.
You've been listening to the Hawke Media Podcast. To ensure that you never miss an episode, make sure to subscribe to the show in iTunes or your favorite podcast player. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.